All right, so this is the additional short video that I promised you, and we were on question number 7. So on this one, same directions as the one before, we're finding the derivative. And as you're all well aware of now, we're starting with the denominator first, so it's the tangent of x. And then it's the derivative of what's on top. So the derivative of 2 minus 3x, well, the 2 is 0. The minus 3x is negative 3. And then we're going to take the derivative of what's on top. Of what's on bottom. The derivative of tangent is secant squared. And then we rewrite the first, the numerator piece as is. So 2 minus 3x. And it's all over the denominator, tangent squared of x, right? The denominator squared. There's not a ton we can clean up here. We will multiply out this piece and we'll move, the negative 3 to the beginning. But there's not going to be anything we're going to be able to combine. So this is negative 3 tangent of x. And then I'm going to have plus 2 secant squared of x. And I have minus 3x secant squared of x. All over the tangent squared of x. And as unfortunately messy as that is, there's nothing we can do to clean it up. Okay, we have one more, problem number 8. On problem number 8, my suggestion if you take a look at the numerator is to go ahead and distribute the 3 through. There's really no reason that it needs to be separated, and just for the sake of working with it, it'll make it a little bit easier. So I have 3 minus 3 sine of x to start with over 2 cosine of x. So we're going to take the derivative, denominator first, 2 cosine x, derivative of the numerator. So the 3 part of the beginning, its derivative is 0. And the derivative of sine is cosine, so this is negative 3 cosine of x. That's being multiplied by the denominator. Subtraction, and then I need the numerator, which is 3 minus 3 sine x, times the derivative of the denominator. And the derivative of 2 cosine x would be 2 times negative sine of x, right? The derivative of cosine is negative sine. And it's all over the denominator squared. So 2 cosine of x, all of that squared. Don't forget that means you're going to square the 2 at the beginning as well. All right, this one actually has a little bit of cleanup to do, and it's maybe a surprising cleanup that you might not have expected. So I want to make sure you see it. So the 2 times the negative 3 is negative 6. So negative 6 cosine of x. And then over here, as I distribute this through, there's several things going on, but notice that this negative is going to be distributed through, and so is this negative. So if you distribute both the negatives, it becomes a positive, so those are actually going to cancel out in terms of distribution values. This piece right in here is now just going to be 2 sine of x. Since the negative's canceled, it's going to be distributed. So I actually have 3 times 2, so there's another 6 sine of x. And then I have that same 6, but it's negative, so negative 6 sine squared of x. All over, oops, and I forgot that. I'm so sorry. If you guys were in class, you guys would have shown me that at the beginning it should have been negative 6 cosine squared because I had multiplied a cosine and a cosine, so that should have been cosine squared. And then all of this is over 4 cosine squared of x. So that's what we're working with. Now here's the interesting thing, right? If you take a look at these cosine squared and this sine squared, they both have a value negative 6 being multiplied by them. So take a look at what happens when I recognize that. If I factor out a negative 6 of just those two terms, that gives me cosine squared x plus sine squared x. And I still have the 6 sine x on the top. I mean, I can't leave it out, but it's irrelevant. Yeah, I can take a 6 out of it too, but again, irrelevant, okay? The reason it matters, and hopefully you've seen and caught this before I even said it, is because the sine squared plus cosine squared, or cosine squared plus sine squared. From trig, as you know, it equals 1. So this is actually negative 6 times 1 plus 6 cosine x over 4 cosine squared of x. Now, of course, negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. And if you'll take a look, we have even numbers here everywhere. I've got 4s and 6s, and so they're all even. I can divide them all by 2 as well. So my last pieces of information would be to divide by 2. So I have negative 3 plus 3 cosine of x over 2 cosine squared of x. And this is my derivative of k. So stay tuned, stay aware of those Pythagorean identities. At some point you might see a reciprocal identity or a quotient identity that can be applied in a different fashion. So just be aware of those things happening, because there is an expectation that if you can simplify, including trig simplification, that you will.